Hello, this is Blair Stanislao with the Happy Lion Center. Welcome to our podcast, Mystical and Infamous, where we have playful and easy conversations about anything mystical, getting to the heart of all things strange and weird. Join us in a bit of magical tomfoolery, spreading the alchemy of love and light. And now, we invite you to enjoy the show.
What's really on my heart is the wave, this new wave of humanity that's coming through and the women that are bringing it through. And that, I've got goosebumps as I'm talking about that. I'm so excited about that opening up that women are feeling called. They know in their hearts they're meant to be leading. They know in their hearts they're meant to be creating a new world with us, all of us together. There are so many of us doing it individually, and yet we're all doing it together at the same time. And what I'm really present to this morning is that cracking open, the cracking open of the paradigm that we're living in, but the cracking open of ourselves. And that cracking open to me is like the shell that's on the outside of us, and our souls want to shine and radiate, and they want to lead the way. And all the work that we're all doing together is like basically dismantling the shell. It's dismantling everything that gets in the way of us. Oh, I don't know if you can hear that cockatoo in the background. It's really loud. The cocky's like, yes! We call them cockies here. And Australian native birds that like screech and squawk and hang upside down in the trees playing. The work that we're doing is that. It's everything that's in the way of ourselves to step into those leadership roles. And we are dismantling centuries of culture, of suppression, of ways of being in the world, of our family history. Like, we are doing that work where the buck stops with us, so we can basically heal that intergenerational timelines and the broader patriarchal system that we've all been brought up in, to be able to absolutely radiate and shine our light and have nothing in the way of inside of ourselves and everything that we've learned and taken on board as we've grown up in this world, so we can step into those leadership roles that we're meant to and really bring a new way of being into the world. And that's what's on my heart this morning, Blair. I'm so blessed that I get to work with so many women doing this work. Like, so many women know that they're meant to be in a heart-centered leadership role in some way, shape or form. Like, they know they're bringing through like something new to this world. And it really is about how quickly can we get all of that shell cracked open? How quickly can we get all of that healing work done on the inside of us, so we're not left with those questions of maybe I'm not good enough, or I'm unlovable, or what are the myriads of other things, like I'm not worthy of this, or I don't deserve it, or maybe why I can't create this thing in my life is because of me. No, none of that is true. And the healing work that I do is really about getting all of that out of the way, so you're left with your pure essence of your soul and what's in your heart and soul, and letting that lead the way, letting your intuition lead the way.
So another way that I've heard that described, and I hear it described in like, it comes out of all different kinds of people's mouths, but it is really going into this kind of like approaching life from a feeling perspective, which is very much not what a lot of cultures do. You know, they're very action oriented. They're very, I've got to do these things because this is what's expected, that kind of thing. But feeling your way through it, which is the feminine energy, right?
It is.
And you said something that kind of, I don't know. I think we should address it. So I just saw just a moment ago, I see it all the time. I even like see it in people. I have a friend who was doing this. Yes, I think it was, Friday. And, you said something about that, but I don't think it's quite the same. So oftentimes we have subconscious belief or patterns or whatever you want to call it. But basically there's something that's there that essentially is in fact causing you a problem moving forward with whatever it is you want to do. So what you're talking about, the shell, is breaking that, releasing it, allowing it to dissipate or disappear, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. And then somehow you said something about, one of these pieces of the shell is believing that we are the ones getting in the way of that success. So my question is, when we have those beliefs, they do get in the way. So in a way, we are kind of in our own way. But what do you mean more specifically about that? Because you're saying it sounds like you're saying not only let go of whatever the belief is that's holding you back, that is yours, right? That is your possession. It's something that you do, right? But also releasing the idea that you're the one that's the problem. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, both. Yep, I'm saying both. I'm saying the two opposite things at the same time in some ways, right? So what I'm saying is such a good question, Blair. Yeah. So let's delve into this. The things that are in our way are like the programming and the things that we've decided about ourselves it's almost like, when you're a little kid and something outside in the world happens, like maybe your parents split up and you think that it's like your fault, right? And so then you're not good enough, or you're not worthy enough, or you're not whatever, XYZ enough because your parents didn't stay together. It's these tiny little decisions that we make that we then, which is based on a feeling, Blair, like you were saying, it's a feeling informed belief, right? So, but it was from when we were a child. And then we grow up and we've accumulated all of these different feelings that have turned into beliefs. And we're kind of stuck in these patterns. And we're stuck in the patterns not only from our own upbringing, but from what's sitting in our family system as well as patterns. And so, yeah, the healing work is about releasing all of the stuff of the things that we're in our own way. And yet it's also doing the healing work to understand that actually so much of it doesn't belong to you. Like so much of what's in your own way isn't you. So much of what's in your own way is hidden in the background. It's things that are out of plain sight, hidden, but in plain sight. How does that saying go, Blair? I always have a Donnaism somewhere, Blair, and I make up an analogy or adjust it somehow and never get it right. But it's those things, there are things that are hidden within us, within our worlds that are actually quite obvious when someone points them out. But like there are two things. Yes, we do the inner work. And then once we do the inner work, we do so much healing to realize the hell of it is not about ourselves. So much of it is not about ourselves. And yeah. Does that answer your question?
It does. It brings up, so I know that there's an enormous, because I've done some of this stuff, right? Like I'm sure I still have more to do, but I can remember one specific time I was doing work actually with Adrian, and I was honestly trying to prepare for my mother's death, her passing. Okay. And the reason I was trying to prepare for that is because my husband had died several years before, and I was an utter mess. Like, I don't think I could physically go through that again. And here I am thinking, it's my mother. I've literally never lived without her. Okay. So I don't want to go through that again. So we were working on some pretty heavy things. And it finally occurred to me, because she asked, as a healer does, she just asked some questions that had never been brought to light. Not that they didn't exist or the answers didn't exist, but it just came up. And she asked me early, I think the first phone call I had with her, because it was really, if the feeling was more about my husband, like I didn't want to experience that again when my mother died. Not necessarily that I was dealing with my mother right then. And so the questions were, for how many women in your family did the husband die first? Okay. I'd never even thought about that. So we go along the healing journey, and I just got married last summer, and we had just had our conversation where I said, I want to marry you. I know it. So whatever you want to do, And so I knew that it was going to be a thing, like it really was coming into fruition. And I can remember, I think I was outside shoveling snow or something. And I thought to myself, okay, this is going to happen. Now I need to start worrying about him dying. And then I thought to myself, why do I have to do that? Why am I the one, right? And then I started to think, my mother just the phrases that my mother and my grandmother and all of them, they say that it's not even like, one major event. I mean, of course, death is a major event, but it wasn't that. It was like every time you turn around, well, you need to behave like this because basically we can't count on the men. Well, we need to do this because you can't count on them to be, you know what I'm saying? And it finally occurred to me that, yeah, no, that was not mine. I did not need that anymore. And that's a conscious experience of it. I'm sure you've had, maybe you can articulate more of an energetic experience of it.
Yeah, so from an energetic perspective, I have a number of clients who have like similar sort of patterns or things like, I would describe it from a family constellation therapy perspective as people in the family system moving towards death at a young age. So in one of my clients' families, it was all the men, like you're saying, Blair. And when I asked her about this, so her brother died at a young age in a tragic car accident. Some of the other, there were a series of people that had either tried to commit suicide or had thought about committing suicide. There can be this movement from an energetic perspective of souls moving towards death. And that pattern is something that happens over and over and over again. And from a place of, when souls are born into a family system, they can feel if there's something amiss. So if there's unprocessed trauma, or if there is something that's not quite right, often that soul coming in will try and replay the same pattern out of love and loyalty to the family to try and resolve it. And so there, from that perspective, you actually have this pattern of the same things happening over and over again, which is very similar to what you're talking about, Blair. And so what happened was, way back when, there was some sort of trauma that happened of someone dying at a young age that was never processed properly by the family members. It was never healed properly. And so then it created this repeating pattern. What we do in family constellation therapy from an energetic perspective is figure out, or like basically release the trauma for all of the souls in the family system who have experienced that. And we figure out where the trauma came from and we help heal that. And then we release it from everyone in there, in that whole family, which includes future generations. And it includes obviously healing back through the timeline for all of the people who've already experienced either death at a young age or have been impacted by it. And it's big stuff, right, Claire? Like, it is big stuff. The work that we do impacts, whether our male children, for instance, whether our sons are going to die at a young age. I'm so passionate about this because it has such a profound impact on everyone else that's to come. And that's why so many of us are doing the work, right, is to be, and we're often the black sheep of the family as it happens, but then here we are, the one stopping, the buck stops with us. This is not going to be a continuing pattern anymore. And we all choose to do that healing. So the rest of the family is released from it. But not only that, but also when that happens, there's an increase in the flow of love in the family system, an increase in the flow of life force energy, and you can actually get the blessings from all of your ancestors and the support from all of your ancestors to go out and create something very different in your life. So that means that not only are you now not bound to that inevitable pattern that was in your family, but you now have the support behind you to create something very different in your life and therefore future generations. So yeah, from an energetic perspective, we do that work in the family system.
So I'm going to ask you, I'd like you to, if you don't mind, because I know you can do this really well. I've recently, last week, I had a meditation where what was brought to light was this sensation. It was sort of a visualization, but it wasn't really. It was an understanding of knowing, I think, more concretely about moving energy. Now, energy workers understand this in ways that maybe some other people don't always understand it, but it's because to me, it's a little bit elusive to understand exactly how the energy works. You can see the outcome in the physical realm, and you can sense the energy, but we're only experiencing ourselves here, right? So we can't be in somebody else's body and experience what they're experiencing. So what I'd like to do is spend a little bit of time essentially trying to explain what it means to be moving energy like that, right? It doesn't really matter how we're doing it, but what does it really mean to be moving energy? And what it makes me think of, especially with this conversation, is like you're saying, when you do, like you said, process certain emotions or certain events, you just get this immense feeling of love. And the support that you're talking about really comes through as a feeling. It's not a mental thing. It's not something that you can something carry down the road, but it's something that's with you no matter what. It's almost like the idea of, if somebody's being attacked, well, there's certain things they can't take from you. And this would be one of those things. So can you speak to what it might feel like to somebody, or how they might see it, or something to kind of articulate what it really means to move that kind of energy?
I know what this means because I've felt it so many times myself, and I've seen it in my clients, and my clients have told me what they feel it and how they experience it. But I also know, because when I'm with my clients, I'm feeling what they're feeling. So I know exactly what is going on too. And so when they say it, I'm like, yep. But often what people feel is this sense of like heaviness or burden that's been lifted off their shoulders, sometimes off their chest. And there's a feeling of lightness that comes, and it's a physical experience. Like, it's energy, yes, but it's a physical body experience too. And then people often tell me, Donna, oh my gosh, I just feel so relieved, and their body just goes, ooh, like this, like nervous system relaxing, like warm liquid honey, like their body just, oh, and it's so beautiful. And then I can see their breath deepens, and there's this physical response of, they just feel at ease and more relaxed and just somehow better, And you're right, Blair, one of the other things that happens is that people feel really loved. Like, I'm not talking about, oh yeah, I know I love this person. I'm talking about the kind of love that turns your world upside down, because it's the kind of love that you've never experienced like that. It is pure, unconditional love that often people have yet never had. I had clients sitting there absolutely bawling their eyes out just because of how amazing it feels to finally have the love that they've always yearned for and never got. So when we talk about it as a feeling, as an experience, it's a body sensation, but it is everything. To me, it's everything, Blair, because I believe, like, our emotions are our gateway to our soul, but also the quality of our life depends on our feelings. How we feel about everything either amplifies our life or it detracts from it. It's either our Achilles heel or the wind beneath our wings. And so when our emotions and our energy is not like, in check or regulated, or, like when we're feeling pretty average and we're, sad or depressed or anxious or scared or like all of those things, and we don't know how to take that into a different place, like, that is your Achilles heel. That is a really average experience of what life is. And when you move that with energy, like when you move energy and you have that healing, you're also moving your emotions. Your emotions become regulated and grounded, and you don't need to go on the highest highs and lowest lows. I rode that roller coaster for a while, Blair. It was not fun. It's kind of even in the high wasn't fun, because you knew you were going to go to the low anyway. But that the being able to move energy and actually have the experience of, like, for instance, that love that you've always yearned for, it's priceless. It is priceless to know how to feel, like in your body, not head, It is priceless to know and feel and get how loved you are. It is something else.
Yeah. initially my first thought as the person who does a lot of energy work, and actually I got told this today, somebody was channeling for me and they were actually saying I needed to basically take care of myself more, like take care of my physical body more. And it wasn't like specifically, do something particular. It was all this energy that I'm moving. It has an effect on the body. And I'm not letting the body acclimate. And I think that would align with what you're talking about, is such big energy shifts that for some people who are sensitive, it does, when you have a big shift, it really does turn into a physical experience. Now, what that physical experience is totally unique, right?
Very, very unique. And you're right. This is, we're talking about energy and emotional healing, but actually it's body work. Yeah. That is another name for it. And we don't really talk about it like that, but our bodies need to process it. Our bodies get to catch up. Our bodies get to have the experience of being like that too. And so what I see with my clients is how quickly they can move through the healing program with me is dependent upon how much their bodies often need to process. And so, sometimes you get sick and I'm like, and my clients are like, can we do some energy work to help me get better quicker? And I'm like, you can have all the light and the healing energy, and your body is so intelligent. Let it do its thing, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, why I love doing this kind of work is because how good does it feel to have a calm belly? Like, how good does it feel to have an open, calm belly and peace of mind and relaxed in your body? Like, it feels amazing. It feels amazing to have space. It feels amazing to have, like openness within your body where you can see all this beauty around you and take it in. Like right now I can hear the birds in the background and I'm in heaven, And to me, when we do this energy and emotional healing work, it gives you access to that. It gives you access to heaven on earth rather than hell on earth, which is what emotions that are all over the shop are giving you.
Okay, so I want to go back to the leadership topic because that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I always get like little goosebumps and get really excited when I see a woman leading in a way that's so feminine and yet functions in the world and so forth. But it's interesting to me. I mean, I think I also read an article somewhere, I don't know where it was, but somewhere online, just taking note of the countries that were led by women during COVID and how the country itself, like as a unit, how it responded differently than other countries that were led by men, and specifically in a very masculine energy. So my question is for those people who are these women who are feeling the push and the drive to do exactly what you're talking about here. What have you found with your clients or just in general that helps them to kind of transition from maybe not taking quite as much as a leadership role to stepping more into their own power? Can you kind of describe how it works, or is it so unique that you can't really do that?
It is very unique. And the theme that I see for women doing this, Blair, you know that I'm clairvoyant and I can see colors in people's energy fields. Often, not all the time, but often when I see the women who are on this soul path, I can often see a pale coral color around them. And that when I see pale coral around women, I get really excited because I'm like, oh, like, here we go. Like, and I'm like on the edge of my seat, like, who are you and what are you doing? Tell me everything. But pale coral to me is that divine feminine leadership, is the new way, that new wave of humanity that wants to come through. But often what sits behind that is some significant, for want of a better word, because it's used so much, trauma. There's often some sort of experience that woman has had that is like a break in her life path, in the trajectory that she was going in. Something happened and it was connected to her feminine self in some way, shape, or form. Now, maybe that was sexual abuse. Maybe that was difficulty with some aspect around motherhood. It could have been with their own mother. It could be as a mother themselves. It might be not being able to have children. It might have been having children for some way, for something. It might be losing children. But there can often be this not hidden because it's been part of their lives, but like background of something significant happening to them that's connected to the feminine. When that healing happens around that, it's almost like they are free and liberated. It's like all of a sudden they get to spread their big angel wings and move into this other space that is not bound by anything in the past. They're informed by it. They have the wisdom that sits with them from it. And it's not just the trauma that they've gone through and it's the gold, like they get the wisdom and the gold from everything that they've been through personally, but somehow they're liberated from all the other stuff that we're talking about earlier, which is the patriarchy and capitalism and, all of the different cultural things that we've also been informed about. These women that are doing this work, they're educated women. They know exactly what is going on in the world, and they know that they have a role that they're meant to play to bring something else through. And I love that. Yeah. I love the courage that takes. I love that they're a breath of fresh air because usually they're also bringing through something quite unique. Mm-hmm. And it just makes me so excited, Blair. Like, yes, please, can you all do more of this?
Do you find that so you're talking about them healing the feminine. Do you find that they also need to deal with the masculine side? Or I guess my question is, do you find that they kind of struggle? Because I would say the world as a whole, most places in the world anyways, they do kind of approach the public or outward life from a masculine point of view. So once they heal that feminine, what happens to them, the masculine way that they approach things? Does that become in more balance? Does it, do they know how to shift? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it becomes more balanced. It's not denying the masculine parts of ourselves. My goodness, we need those parts of ourselves. We need the get up and go. We need the got to make things happen parts of ourselves. We need structure, and we also need boundaries, and we need to become an authority within ourselves. There is a real maturing that happens on the inside, and often that is an emotional growing up on the inside. And it's like doing that healing work brings everything more into balance. So you bring on board all the masculine parts of yourself, all the feminine parts of yourself, and you find that, there's never any balance as such, is there, Blair? But like you integrate all these parts of yourself more. So you just like, okay, here I am. All right, soul, what are we going to do now? No? And the other part that I wanted to share, actually, Blair, which I didn't before, was that this new wave of women that are coming through are often all about community. They're the bigger picture. There is something that they're passionate about that is not just about them. It is community, bigger, like broader consciousness kind of stuff.
Can you speak to maybe some examples of what it's like what I'm trying to do here is pull out some examples or some information that tells people what it feels like to heal a feminine?
I can tell you my own personal experience.
Okay.
Oh, I could just feel myself dropping really deeply. So just bear with me, Blair, as I let my heart open up even more with you. To me, healing the feminine means that I have really good, healthy boundaries. I'm very strong in myself in ways that I never was before. I'm very clear, like I have clarity, and I'm not afraid to say no, like over and over again. And I'm also not afraid to say yes. I'm not afraid to go for things. Don't hold myself back anymore. Healing of the feminine for me means that I embrace who I am as a unique individual much, much more. You know, I'm okay with being like, I'm okay with being the mum walking on the dog beach with no makeup on and my dirty trackies on. You know, I'm okay with that. I'm also okay with the version of me who can show up and share this sort of content with the world. I'm not afraid to be myself. And I don't really care about what anyone thinks. You know, there's this layer of like having to perform that's disappeared for me as I've healed my feminine. Like, I don't care to perform anymore. What you see is what you get. And if you want to jump on board the Donna train, we're going to have a lot of fun, you know? But from an inside perspective, healing the feminine has mean that I've released all the pain. I have released so much pain that's been inflicted on me, and the pattern of pain where I was repeatedly inflicting pain on myself. Mm-hmm. And that part where I was like causing myself so much damage by the way that I was talking to myself, by the way that my relationship with myself. And when I look back at my life, I see that, you know, from some of the abuse that I've experienced, what I got used to was that I was meant to be treated like that. And then I treated myself like that. Mm-hmm. So all of that pain, whether it was external or internal, has all gone. Like, I don't have that anymore. I've just got so much more, like, I've got this gentle space in my heart that's like, I'm so filled with love. Mm-hmm.
It's so
to me, it's liberation.
Yeah. And a relaxing. And like you said this before, it's not, I mean, there are words that we use all the time, but it's a relaxing into it. It's a release. It's like you've got all this luggage in your arms, you've been walking around, you just let it go. And then you realize all of a sudden, I don't have to have this. You know, I've said for a long time, I don't want this. Now I really know I don't have to have it. And all I have to do is just let go of it.
Yeah. And it's gone.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Like, you know, one of the things that really frustrates me, Blair, is in our industry is when you do healing work and then they're like, oh, and then the same thing pops up again 6 months later and they're like, oh, it's another layer of the onion. No. Like, healing work gets to work, so it actually gets released, and you don't ever think about that again. Yeah. So, for instance, like, you get to feel safe. You get to be in a place of trust, and all the stuff that's not that gets to go. It gets to be released. It gets to be gone, and it gets to be something that you just don't even think about.
Yeah, I think that I know what you're talking about there because we hear that all the time. And now you have stuff to work on too, right? Like, it's not like I just have one thing to work on and then I'm done, right? But it's a different thing.
100%.
It's like a different heart wall. So, and what you're talking about is that total and complete relaxation. I would describe it, and I can't say I experience it all the time, but there are certainly very distinct times, especially when they're really high tension, where you're experiencing this thing, and then you're doing the work, and then you release it. It's like you don't even, like you said, you don't even have to think about it. It is a no-go. Like, it's completely gone. It doesn't even enter your brain space at all. It doesn't seem to even enter your energetic field, other than a lesson that came from that.
Exactly. So then what you're left with is the gold. It's the wisdom. That's what you get left with. Yeah.
So how would you apply this to men? Because it's funny you described it just like that, because literally yesterday I was with my new husband's family. My children and I were with them, and they were just casually talking about how they like to keep a house, like housekeeping kind of stuff. And they have a very different approach than I have. And my two children were sitting there and they were just kind of casually talking. And what I was hearing was, which I already knew a lot of this, right? But there was a lot of critique from one person. And then the other person, instead of critiquing like that, turned around and critiqued another way. And the younger generations were like, oh, I finally realized it's really not that big of a deal, and just let it go because I have a good roommate or whatever. And it's funny because coming into this family as coming from a totally different perspective, it's just really enlightening, but it's a perfect example of one generation, like you said, starts with some sort of judgment or critique, and then that becomes the next generation's automatic thinking, and they're doing that all the time. And that happens to men too.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is,
yeah, it does.
how is there anything that you would share that might help men to resonate with this kind of healing?
So I actually work with men as well. I don't just work with women. So I know that we're talking about women. I love working with women, and I love working with men. What happens for me is almost like when I do healing work with men, we're kind of doing some of the same stuff. It's unpacking the patriarchy. It's unpacking unpacking capitalism. It's unpacking everything that's informed them of what a, inverted commas, man is meant to be. And so we need to do all of that for the men too. We've got beautiful men in our society that want to be heart-centered, that are getting used by this old paradigm of that they need to show up and be a manly man, or this, or no emotions, or you have to be very successful and make a lot of money to be any worth to your family or your community, or to be seen as making it. There's all of these things that are placed on men's shoulders too that hasn't been really disconnected. And so the work that I do with men is around coming back to who they truly are, becoming emotionally connected again, tapping into their intuition, figuring out what if we are changing this paradigm of patriarchy, then what I'm really talking about is moving to a matriarchal paradigm, right? So what is a man's role in the world of matriarchy? Yes, when they are so programmed to be in a patriarchal, everything about them that they've been told is that they have to show up and be a certain way. That means that they're in control. They're in control of women. They're in control of their work. They're in control of, whoever can be more dominant in their friendship groups are the winners. There is this overpower under thing that they are getting used by so much.
Yeah.
It's rife. And so then how do you, when you've got a woman who's moving into this space of owning her own power and really being very clear that she's a leader, how do you then marry that up in a relationship? What role does that man have when now all of a sudden that woman's stepping up? So the healing work that gets to be done for the men is really connecting with their emotions, dismantling all of the trauma that they've been through too, because they're getting being inflicted with pain in different ways.
Wow.
Yes.
And it's not really even,
they're being told that they're meant to control.
Yeah.
And be powerful as in power over other people And so it's about dismantling that for them. It's about the impact that that's had on them, their inability to be their true selves. And so once we start opening that up, it's really deep, emotion. It can be really deep emotional stuff. It also means that what has happened for them is that they've been so busy trying to be the, inverted commas, man that they think they're meant to. They've become emotionally disconnected, because how can you have both? And then they can't absorb all of the goodness that's already in front of them. I often work with men who are dads, so they've got children, and they're unable to absorb all of the love that these beautiful, sensitive little beings are trying to give them, and also pushing their buttons, trying to activate them too, by the way. But that's a story for another day, isn't it, Blair? But that's the thing, like they've got all an amazing life around them, but they can't access that love. And so here we are, commonalities of men and women, that's what we're all doing. We're all doing that healing work so we can access the love at the end of the day, so we can become our true selves.
So what is it that you think is happening overall in societies, like the world, is what I'm asking? What do you think is going to happen as we go into the more matriarchy versus the patriarchy? Like, how do you see things changing in the world?
I see at this point where we are, I see that there's a lot more like smaller uprisings of women. And I think that is a challenging, like that could be like, there could be like a bit of grappling with that, right? Like some men won't like that, and some will try and stop that, squash that, suppress that. Other men will be supportive of that because they know in their hearts, like we are meant to be, in the fullest expression of ourselves. And we also enable that in our men too. So I feel like there is an uprising of women, of leaders, and I think that might create some unrest. And I also think that it's going to happen. I think that it's inevitable. I think that this is our next evolution, which is a heart-based way of living. And there are too many people that care. There are too many people that care about all of these wars, about all of these children dying, about all of this famine, about all of this poverty. Like there are so many people that care. And I think that it's really easy to get disheartened by seeing things in the media and thinking this world has gone to absolute rubbish. I don't think that that's the case. I do think that there's going to be some like turbulence as women step up and step forward more. And I hope that also enables men to become really amazing leaders too. It's not to the exclusion of men because, as I said, I love men and I think they're amazing. We've all got the work to do so we can all be, making a difference in the world.
So really what you're saying essentially is not, we do it on an individual basis, but really it's healing the feminine as a whole throughout humanity is really what's going to make the big shift. And as you're describing that, it just reminds me of people like Mother Teresa or, because a lot of times in this spiritual work, you have people come in and they're aggravated and they say all this stuff. They tell you the story that goes with it. And for me, I often am thinking, wow, I can understand what they're saying, but then I'm thinking like the structure of how this all works and how to solve this has to be looked at from a totally different perspective, very similar to, essentially Einstein's idea of saying you can't solve the problem with the same thinking that caused it, right? So it's like a shift in the approach, even as we're going, which would happen naturally, right? You're healing the feminine, and it like kind of automatically knows, people know how to adjust. That's just an entirely different way, and it kind of easily eliminates a lot of the problems that are caused from the other way of approaching things.
Yeah. 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 I think that, there are so many people doing this in broader community, and there are so many women individually stepping up. And when I see that community of women, which I am exposed to through my beautiful clients and also, in podcasting interviews like this, Blair, like we get to connect. And there is that soul knowing with each other. There is a familiarity that we have with each other. I said to you, like, there was a real familiarity when I first had connected with you, Blair. And like, we know you could describe it as soul family, but we know because we recognize each other in that way, in that unconscious, going back to feeling way. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Send inquiries, suggestions for new discussion topics and comments to podcast@happylioncenter.com. That's podcast@happylioncenter.com. If you found this content enjoyable or helpful, please comment, like, share, and download. Donations are appreciated and help us to produce more of similar content. Consider making a contribution at the links in the description box. Your support is greatly appreciated. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Happy Lion Center and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone or anything. None of the content provided should be considered a substitute for legal, financial, medical, psychiatric advice or as care from a certified professional.